Hi guys, welcome to Brand X Reviews. Fairly simple video today because I haven't really been doing a lot of videos lately, so I thought I'd just knock this one out just to let you know that I'm still here. But it's something I was kind of thinking of, and that is the film career of John Carpenter. Now, he's probably my favourite film director that I can think of. I wouldn't say he's the best film director. I'm kind of more basing me saying he's my favourite on my personal taste. I mean, the best director, as opposed to my favourite, would be one that I would say has a lot of range and a lot of talent in a lot of different areas. Somebody like Steven Spielberg, who hasn't necessarily knocked it out of the park every time, but he's got a lot of range. He can do comedy, he can do sci-fi, he can do war movies, biopic, whatever. Clint Eastwood as well, great film director. John Carpenter, on the other hand, similar to somebody like Christopher Nolan, is the top of the game, in my opinion, but only in their game. So John Carpenter's game would be horror, I suppose. I mean, he has sort of deviated from it, but he's proven that that is what he's best at, and he is one of the best at it as well. So that's a good thing. Like I say, it's not quite as legendary as somebody like a Steven Spielberg, for example, but somebody like John Carpenter and Christopher Nolan, who do the same kind of films time and time again. I know Christopher Nolan, I mean, he can do a Batman film, he can do a film like Dunkirk, but they all kind of have the same kind of tone and feel to them, like it feels like it's almost the same universe. John Carpenter movies, to me, tend to feel the same way as well. You can say that about others like Quentin Tarantino as well. In fact, there's a whole Quentin Tarantino movie universe, like a cinematic universe that exists. It's quite an interesting one when you look at it. But that's not the subject of this video. So, like I say, with John Carpenter, me being a big fan of horror films, not massively, it's not really my favourite genre, but to me I think it's one that really is very special to me. And it's for a lot of people, because I think horror films are really something that everybody can kind of enjoy, apart from people that are too scared to watch them. But people that, like horror movies can all kind of enjoy them and kind of talk about them. It's one of those subjects, like you'll be at work and you'll just start talking about horror movies, and then everyone will get into the conversation because everybody's got an opinion on the best horror movies or the most scary experiences they've had. Such a great genre. And like I said, John Carpenter to me really is I wouldn't necessarily say a pioneer. Well, actually, no, I would, because something like Halloween, for example, really kind of reinvented and kind of started the slasher genre, for example. So in some ways, he's a pioneer of the thing. No pun there, the thing, whatever. I'm trying to avoid saying that in this video. But so many other videos that he's done films that he's done have been kind of unique in various different ways, like The Thing, for example. Going back onto that, I think that was one in particular where his use of practical effects really was something that I think has a lot of people tried to imitate over time, because they were very creative with this, similar to what George Lucas was doing with Star Wars. Really kind of thinking of creative ways of making visual effects, because seems like every film that comes out nowadays just takes the easy road and just does the computer generated effects, which is a real shame as well. We saw this when they did the Thing prequel / remake in 2011. The Thing was just littered with really bad CGI, which I know was something that they weren't planning on doing originally from what I understand. But it just goes to show the difference, the contrast with modern day visual effects, the CGI, even when it's done really well, and the kind of practical effects that John Carpenter was doing with films like The Thing. Now, he didn't always show you things like gore. I mean, there was quite a lot of that kind of body horror in The Thing, and there are a few other ones that he did that used that. Films like Prince of Darkness, that's some real nasty stuff in there. But a lot of his other films, they didn't show you stuff. It was left to the imagination, which nowadays with the found footage genres and all that kind of thing has been kind of done to death. But in films like Halloween, which was a slasher movie, you didn't really see much a lot of the time. They weren't quite as graphic as films nowadays, to the point where you kind of watch it, and in some ways it seems quite tame, but it was the way that it was laid out with the music and the suspense and just the cinematography and the way that he directed the Michael Myers character. All that stuff thrown in was just really a good example of how talented and how creative John Carpenter was. So I think to me that really is why he stands out as one of my favourite film directors, being also, I'm a bit biased, I love horror movies. As much as I love other films or genres like superhero movies and action movies, I'm a big film fan in general. So, but I would say that the horror genre is something that kind of means a lot to me as well. Like going back to what I was saying before, everyone has a lot of enjoyment with the genre when they've been into it, you know, excluding people that don't like horror movies because they're too scared of them or whatever. People that do like them have got some really good happy memories of watching horror films and having the shit scared out of them. And to anyone who hasn't seen a lot of the John Carpenter films, I would recommend pretty much all of them. I mean, there's only one that I haven't seen, and I didn't particularly want to watch it because I'd heard bad things, and that is his last film that I'm aware of that he did, called The Ward. And I just heard kind of negative things about it and thought, I don't want to tarnish my views of the film director. I will get around to watching that one of these days, but I saw the TV projects that he did. What was it called? Masters of Horror. And I wasn't too impressed. Granted, they were only TV, but I thought it kind of puts me off him a little bit, in that I like to be able to say that I've liked everything that he's done. I think that's what it is. He wouldn't take away anything good that he's done, but I just like to have enjoyed everything that he's done. Especially when it's the more recent stuff I haven't liked, because you would hate it when somebody's talent kind of declines. It's kind of sad to see that. But like I say, going back to what I was saying about recommending his films, there aren't any that I would really say don't watch. I mean, there are some that I'm not as big a fan of, but not because I'd say they're bad films. It's just they didn't particularly resonate with me, and that's films like Starman, which was kind of his way of trying to apologise for making The Thing, because The Thing movie really offended some people when it came out. It came out in 1982, which was the same year as E.T., so that year it was all about happy aliens and friendly aliens and, you know, selling teddy bears of aliens. And then this really nasty alien film came out called The Thing. And it was pretty nasty, to be fair, but in a way that I really like. It's one of my top 10 films of all time. But it just didn't sit well with audiences, critics, and ultimately, it found its place in the videotape market and on TV as well throughout the 80s. That's how I saw it. And but unfortunately, when it came out of the cinema, it wasn't a big success. Also, it was during the sort of height of the AIDS thing. You know, you don't know who's got it, and that was thematic with The Thing. I don't think it was done intentionally for that reason, but obviously you don't know who The Thing is, and it's got this real kind of body horror, this internal horror aspect, which I'm going to get into that in a second. But so he made Starman a couple of years later, which is kind of a friendly E.T. style movie, although the alien in it is human in appearance, played by Jeff Bridges. Pretty good performance as well, to be fair. But again, that's not really... It's one of my least favourite of his films, but it's still a good film. So that's a good reputation. When your least favourite in a series is still pretty good. It's kind of like with the Marvel films. My least favourites are probably Thor: The Dark World and The Incredible Hulk from 2008. I still quite like them though, so that's a good thing. So I would definitely recommend probably some of the top tier of the John Carpenter movies would be any of the ones with Kurt Russell. Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. Escape from LA is not as popular as the original, but I liked it. And obviously The Thing as well. Now, films like Christine wasn't so much scary, but it's a very good film. I watched that last night. I've seen it many times before. And also Prince of Darkness is a really underrated one. It's a bit of a slow burner, but I would say watch it. You'll probably enjoy it. There's a few other ones that are lesser known. Children of the Damned. Is it Children of the Damned or Village of the Damned, I think it's called. And Memoirs of an Invisible Man, which is not a horror film. It's more like a superhero movie, sort of, with Chevy Chase. But again, pretty good film. I really enjoyed that. But it's an underrated one. But go on IMDb, look his films up. You'll pretty much enjoy any of them. So now going back, one last point I was going to make, because I was saying before about internal like fears coming from within, because this is one thing that John Carpenter has talked about, and I think it's really interesting. He basically said that with horror movies or just horror stories or whatever, there are two kind of sides to it. There's a left wing and a right wing. Nothing to do with political paradigms, nothing to do with conservatives and liberals, nothing like that. It just means there's a left wing and a right wing of horror. And the way he kind of describes this is the old man kind of telling a story around a campfire to a load of people, you know, like a witch doctor or whatever, and he's telling this story about the threat. And the right wing side of that would be the witch doctor that's telling the story about this evil will say that the evil is out there, it's in the forest, it's going to come and get you, it's the boogeyman, it's Michael Myers, you know, it's whatever kind of thing, like Jaws, you know, it's out there, it's in the abyss, and it's going to get you. That's the right wing of horror. And John Carpenter has done those movies. But then there's the left wing of horror, which is really interesting. And that is basically, there is an evil, but it's not out there, it's in there. And that's what you got to deal with. And John Carpenter's also done very good films like that as well, like The Thing, for example, and some of the psychological thrillers that he's done, like In the Mouth of Madness. It's a really kind of interesting way of looking at it. And to me, I think you can categorise a lot of horror films, not just like horror films, but like your psychological thrillers and all that kind of stuff. You can look at them as either left wing or right wing of horror. So something like The Fly, for example, that's not a right wing. You know, it's out there, it's going to get you. That's internal. It's what you become. It's what's within you. What's within everybody, and you're just waiting to come out. So a really interesting way of looking at it. And for the point of this, obviously, John Carpenter has put it in that sense. And to me, yeah, you can kind of see both sides there, that he's really good at doing both. So I think that's really an interesting way of looking at horror movies and horror stories. You could count books in that as well. So I'll pretty much leave it there. I'm kind of rambling now. But like I say, the John Carpenter filmography to me is a really special one, and it's one that I've been following since I was a kid. I remember watching The Thing when I was very young and being really impressed by it. Not like scared of it. I mean, there is that, but I always just thought it was a really good film. And of course, other things that he's done, like Escape from New York, was one that I saw when I was very young as well. Such a good track record anyway. So I'll leave it there. If you have any thoughts on this, leave them in the comments. I might have some more John Carpenter related videos coming up. I've done a few others on the channel, so you can check them out. But for now, I'll just leave it there. You can follow us on YouTube, obviously. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. But for now, I'm just going to leave there and say thank you very much for watching. Don't have nightmares. One last thing I was going to say, on the channel, I usually give birthday shout-outs to everybody. Well, it's my sister's birthday tomorrow. She's turning 40, so I thought, as part of the tradition of this channel, Topher lends us his pants, his happy birthday pants. So happy birthday, Katie, or Catherine, whatever you want me to call you, whatever you prefer. Happy birthday from me, and obviously from the Topher as well. Now, I wish he'd wash these pants when he, lends them to this. Seriously, that's disgusting. But anyway, I'll leave you there. Happy birthday.